Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager at PHECONNECTSHOW for podcast show details.
Hello, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not be those of the host or the station. Folks, you're going to want to listen to this podcast. Have you met any emotionally unavailable men in your life or women? We're not picking just on the men here today. I think you're going to need to listen to this podcast. Why are women attracted? What makes them be attracted to emotionally unavailable men? Well, we're going to find that out with my guest, Patti Henry, who is a psychotherapist in her private practice since 1988. She has an M.ED, L.P.C, and she is author of many books. She is author of The Emotionally Unavailable Man, which we're going to talk about today, A Blueprint for Healing, a book for men and women. Welcome, Patti Henry, to Chatting with Betsy.
Oh, thank you so much, Betsy, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. I hear a lot. I'm in a lot of groups, and I have to ask them, first, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I, as a therapist, have come across emotionally unavailable men in marriages a lot, and the woman will bring their husband in and say, fix him. And really, this book is
I've
about
done that.
This book is about really getting that there are two sides. It's not just him is the problem, but there are things that women do that also perpetuate emotional unavailability. So I just thought they need help. I'm going to write it. So.
Well, I'm glad that you did. There's a lot of questions that I have because the subject itself is just fascinating to me. What makes, this might be a loaded question, what makes a man emotionally unavailable? And how do you tell that they are?
Well, we're getting better as a society, but for many, many, many years, we have taught little boys that it's not okay to develop their emotional self. Like big boys don't cry, be a man, suck it up, I don't want to hear that. And so these little boys, 8 years old, shut down emotional development. And then when they grow up and, 20 years later, when they're in a relationship with someone and the woman is like, you're so unavailable, they don't know how to be available. And so that's what this book is about, is to give guidance how to reconnect to that emotional self that we actually taught them to shut off of.
Patti Henry, I want to say right here, I love you for saying that. I stand behind that 100%. You are so 100% and more correct. I have on my podcast and many times have said we need to raise our boys to be able to express their emotions in a positive way, that they can cry, and it's not a sign of weakness. And you're right. They do shut down because especially in a lot of professions. If you're in the armed services, crying or going for counseling is considered a weakness. Police officers, firemen, and we're talking about men here. We know women also serve in those branches of service. But women are allowed to express our emotions where men aren't. And this is exactly what I try to change by speaking about it on my podcast, that we need to change, especially, when it comes to grieving. And why do we tell men, well, even women, but men, be strong? Like, I didn't raise my son that way, and I did not like it. And I told people, do not tell my son to be strong. He is allowed to cry. Right. Doesn't mean he's weak. Right. He's been strong. So thank you so much for saying that. I just could hug you right through the airwaves.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead. I just love that you said it.
Just went off. I'm just trying to get back to my computer. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to also ask you, why are women attracted to emotionally unavailable men? Is there something in women that they find that, attractive, and then when they find out that a man can't express emotion or show that they care, then we think we can fix them. And we can't.
Absolutely right. If you really look at the origin, for women, it's because they had emotionally unavailable dads. And that feels normal. And so when they start to date, they subconsciously find somebody like their dad who isn't really available emotionally. And so that's part of the attraction.
You know what? You are, again, 100% correct. I can only go by my own experience. My father was emotionally unavailable. My husband was emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. And I also heard that sometimes, when the men are younger and they have mama trauma, that could also cause them to be emotionally unavailable. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think that's true. That, like teenagers, 13-year-old boys are going to shut down if mom gets too intrusive. I know my older son, I have two sons, and my older son, when he was about 13, and I was saying goodnight to him, and I was in his room saying goodnight, and he said, "Mom, I've made a decision." And I said, "Okay, well, you want to share?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to talk to you anymore about girls." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, it's just really none of your business." So I chuckled inside, and I said, "Well, okay, I can support that." I said, "But if you get in trouble or in a pickle and you can't figure something out, I just want you to remember that I was a girl. I was a teenage girl. I know what that feels like. I know, and you could use me as a resource if you need to." And he said, "Okay, if I need to." But he was saying, I have a boundary here. This is my private thoughts and feelings, and I'm going to share what I want and not share what I don't want. And I think when moms are pushy, that it shuts them down even more.
Yes, and sometimes as wives, girlfriends, we tend to push our spouses, partners into talking and nag them to open up, and they're just going to shut down more. I didn't realize this at the time. Nor did I realize that you can't fix anyone. They have to work out their own baggage in their life. Emotionally unavailable men, do they do the silent treatment, where they won't talk to someone?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. One dynamic that happens a lot with emotional unavailability in the man is the woman starts to what I call hurricane. And hurricaning is being huge, just really strong, yelling, screaming, throwing things. Sometimes it can be hurricaning by being silent, doing nothing, saying nothing, not taking any responsibility. And so, we as human beings, when somebody is hurricaning at us, either fight, flight, or freeze. And so that's what we as women have to understand, that the man is trying to survive this hurricane and needs you to have different behavior and different words in order for him to feel safe enough to share his internal self.
What would you recommend for women to do when they are in a relationship or a marriage with a emotionally unavailable man?
Well, I think that the woman has to learn how to actually have space for the man to have their experience without shutting them down and saying, no, that's not right, but just to, be as safe as you can be with your partner and loving. I love you how you are, who you are. I'm sorry you were taught this way. My husband was certainly taught that way growing up, and, we had to work at shifting so he could feel safe enough with me to actually be present and not trying to defend.
Yes, I've heard that, holding space instead of saying, well, I don't like when you do this, this, and this. You can say, when you do this, I feel this way, instead of coming at it as an accuser, just saying that when you do this, I feel this way, and I would really appreciate it if you could do this. I didn't do that, by the way. I didn't know. Back then, but I know now.
I know so many people have told me, oh, gosh, I wish I had bought this book. I had it when I first got married, because we would have spared each other a lot of pain and suffering, just to understand that, little boys have been taught to shut down, and now adult females are like, come on, show your emotions. And they're like, I don't know about that, because they were taught it's not safe. And so the partner, the wife, the significant other has to really make it safe by not exploding, by not sobbing. That's another way of hurricaning, is just sobbing and in so much pain that, the man in the relationship is like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to share again who I really am or what I'm thinking, because the reaction is so big. And that's why I wrote my next book, which was 2 Lifetimes, where we have to learn the difference between our wounded child of reacting and our authentic adult self of being able to respond lovingly, kindly, and in a volume that your partner can tolerate.
Yes, and I interviewed you about that book sometime last year.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, I just think I wish there were books like this 42 years ago. So I could have handled my situation better. When I think back, my husband, Matt, was emotionally unavailable, but I didn't know that because we didn't talk about these things. And I found that the more I nagged him, if I yelled at him or, he would shut down and just not talk to me.
Right.
That was that,
not have the tools to do that. Not have the tools to say, hey, don't talk to me that way. Yeah. And expecting men to know stuff that they were shut down in developing as a child. And so having some compassion for them is so important. And,
I do know one thing, Patty. If I ever date again, I know what to do, what not to do.
Well, I hope you date again. I hope you decide to be brave enough to say, I'm going to have a loving relationship where I get my needs met and he gets his needs met too. It's the good stuff in life.
I just think that books like yours are so important for a young person, male and female, to read, to be prepared for relationships. And you know what, Patty, I feel this way. I mean, especially in my time, because I'm 64, but it might be different now. I think we should prepare our sons and daughters for relationships by giving them books like yours.
Right.
I really do.
I know Duke University, they use this book, The Emotionally Unavailable Man, in their Psychology 101 course. And I'm like, yes. I know that it's in the prison system. The best review that I ever got was from a prisoner. And he wrote to everybody on the block and said, this book is in our library. You need to get it and read it. This woman thinks that something happened to us as kids, and that's why we're in the predicament we're in. And so he said, get prepared to get down on your knees and cry and weep for your little child that got shut down. So,
yes.
Yes,
and I also truly believe that even whether you have a son or a daughter, that if you shut communication off as a parent or your guardian, when they come to you for help, you're going to shut the communication off, and they're going to be emotionally unavailable. They're going to seek advice from people you don't want them to seek advice from. And it is so important to raise our sons and daughters to be able to express emotions in a positive environment, that it's okay.
Exactly. And even the ones that say, I'm not going to share with you anymore, Mom, you have to make room for that, because that's part of the individuating process that happens with our kids from 13 to 18, is leaving our parents behind and going on and starting to count on themselves.
So I have to ask you this, Pat.
Okay.
When a couple comes to you and a wife or partner says, my husband's emotionally unavailable, I can't change him, I can't fix him, maybe you can, what advice do you give them?
Well, first of all, I say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're having the experience that your husband's unavailable. And to the partner, I say, I don't know if you're aware of that. And they usually say, oh, yeah, she tells me every day that I'm just not doing it right. And I say, well, we're going to do things differently here. And I teach them to hear each other, to hear what the other person is saying, as opposed to immediately defending. in trying to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. And we have to get so that we have a win-win situation where both people in the couple, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, it doesn't matter, but there's room for the whole person to show up. Good, bad, ugly, fantastic, everything, that I have room for you. And I love you. I have room for you, and I love you. You're amazing. To really come to know that about your partner, and they know that about you, that you're wonderful and amazing.
Yes, because so often, partners can say, well, you're this and this and this, instead of saying, I love what you do for me. I really appreciate it when you do, bring me flowers, or you bake, cake for me, or something, along those lines. I know that men like to feel safe before they expose themselves emotionally. And women, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, safety is key in a healthy relationship. And so just getting to the point where both people can be fully present and not have to hide parts of themselves. So.
Yes. Do you find that two emotionally unavailable people tend to gravitate towards each other, or is that one's emotionally available and the other one isn't? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I've been in private practice for over 30 years, and so I've seen it all. But I definitely think that we're evolving as a culture where little boys are getting more and more permission to have their feelings. But our parents didn't get that, and so didn't give that. And so it's a cultural thing that's gone on for, I'm going to say, centuries, where that we're not supposed to, little boys are not supposed to have feelings, and the reality is they do. And if you have a 2-year-old boy or a 2-year-old girl, if they are not happy, they will let you know it. And so at 2, they still have that available, and have their emotions right there on the surface. And then we teach them, you can't feel that. You can't express that. You can't have those feelings. And I just think that's criminal, because, I think of it as under the radar child abuse, that we're really abusing our children emotionally by not letting them be free to feel what they feel. And even if it's not what you would pick for them, just really understanding that this is their journey and they have to go through it. I know my younger son, one time he was probably 21, and he said to me, "Mom, there's so much to figure out in this life." I said, "There is." I said, "But don't worry, you'll figure it out." And he said, "What if I don't?" I said, "You will. You will figure it out, because you have to. You have to figure out what you're going to do with your time. You have to figure out what you're going to do with your life, what interests you, what's fun, what's, challenging. And so don't worry, you'll get there." And he is. So that's great.
That is, and I think it's time for the culture to change how we raise our children, especially boys. But I know, as growing up in the 60s, even in school, and especially, home and school, you were considered weak crying, even if you were a female. You don't cry. You're a crybaby. Of course, you get made fun of if you're sensitive and you do cry. You forget if you're a boy, that's even worse, if you showed any sign of crying. And so
man up, right?
Yes, man up, suck it up. Yes.
Exactly. And
yes, and
little girls are still, it's so much better nowadays that, 50 years later from when we were little, but there's still princesses, that I went to a parade at the elementary school one year, and there were like 57 princesses. That's what they were dressed up, and to be taught that, oh yes, all your needs will be met. Don't worry, this prince will come along and make everything fine for you, whatever you want. And that's just as much of a lie as suck it up, be a man, don't feel anything. It's just, we have to awaken as a culture to really get that. And we are. I think it was last summer when Wonder Woman came out, or maybe the summer before. And I went to see it with a group of girlfriends, and, we talked about it afterwards. But when I talked to one of my sons, I said, did you see the movie? He said, yeah. And I said, I had a problem with, some of the stereotypes still that was there and everything. And he goes, oh, I loved it. And I said, really? Why? And he said, because all of the superhero movies are men. Men are the superheroes, and women are not. And this is the first one where I saw a powerful, amazing woman doing backflips. And, he said, I just loved seeing her strength. And so it's changing. I mean, the movies are changing, and that counts as far as being able to see women as powerful and men as powerful, and not a threat to each other.
I loved what you said about the princesses, because, in growing up, yes, you're taught, Prince Charming will come along and take you away, and you live happily ever after, and that's not true. So I worked in, this is funny, I worked in the preschool. So when I would read stories, like Snow White and the other one, Cinderella, like that, and I would say, let me tell you something, there's no Prince Charming that's going to come along and take you away. This is not going to happen, girls.
Just a story, right? Exactly. But they've been brainwashed too. And so it makes sense why they're raging at their partner, because they're not getting all of their needs met the way they expected to. And so they've been duped as well. So that's why my book is a flip book, that men read it one direction, women read it the other direction. Just what they can do to make it safe for their partner to grow and have their feelings and have an intimate connection together. So, I think the woman has a lot of power to make that happen. Learning not to rage, not to hurricane. And hurricaning can be quiet, too. It's just putting on the ice and, setting down to you, my partner, just icing that person out. So, learning how to not do that, how to be present with your partner and validate who they are and love who they are instead of who you want them to be.
Exactly. And learning, I had to learn this, you cannot fix someone. They have to fix themselves. And nagging and harping on them isn't going to change.
Right, it makes it worse. And so learning how to respond in a kind way. I have to tell you a story. When my book first came out, The Emotionally Unavailable Man, I gave a copy to some of my best friends. And my one friend lives in Ohio. I live in Texas. And I sent it to her. And the next time I went to Ohio, I went up to visit her. And she said, okay, we're going to talk about that book. I said, okay. She said, I started to read it, and I thought, oh, my gosh, Pat has lost her mind. She has gone to the other side. She's on the men's side. And she said, so I put the book down. I read 30 pages, and I put it down. And she said, but you're like a lifetime friend. And I thought, I should read it before you come here. And so she read it, and she said, it changed my life. She said, it's the first time I really knew how to love my husband.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And that's what we have to do. We have to learn how to love our partner, even our kids. Even when they're not lovable, we still have to show up and say, hey, that's crossing the boundary for me. I don't want to be mean to you, but I don't want you to talk to me that way. And they'll go, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I believe you that you don't really know what I'm talking about. Here's the book, read it. So I have this book and 2 lifetimes on Audible so that people can listen to it if they're not good readers. But definitely to get the information in there that what you're feeling is perfect, just exactly right.
I have to ask you this, Pattie. Do you think, in your opinion, would you say emotionally abused men and women tend to attract emotionally unavailable people?
Yes. Especially if it could be the father or the mother, but if somebody leaves, like I'm going to just speak from my experience. My dad went to work when I was 4, and he never came back. And he was having an affair and got a divorce, and I didn't see him again for a long time. And that is emotionally unavailable. So, of course, I looked for, subconsciously, people that wouldn't be there for me. And then it would feel normal.
So true. Yes, that's true. I had emotionally unavailable parents, and I married someone who was emotionally unavailable.
Yes, of course, right. It's programmed in. And so you have to become aware of what you're carrying around with you. It's our baggage, what your mom gave you, what your dad gave you, because that's what you're going to be looking for. And you can decide, I'm going to do it differently.
Yes.
And do it differently.
Yes. And we have to really, as individuals, learn to love ourselves first and accept ourselves, how we are, so we can accept other people. And, people think, I'll go out of this relationship and go to this relationship, but they don't realize they're taking that same baggage with them.
Right.
And so they're going to attract the same type of people until they themselves change.
Right, until they wake up to their own stuff and decide, I'm not doing that anymore, and decide I am looking for someone who can actually meet my needs emotionally, physically, intellectually. I say you're allowed to have it all, but you have to say no to the replication of what happened to you as a child. And that is a process, not an event, where we really have to learn, oh, man, this is what my dad did to me, or this is how my mom talked to me, that we start to wake up to what we're carrying, and then we can put it down.
Yes,
and
learn. That's so true.
I mean, yes, that is. Emotionally Unavailable Man, I talk about you have to learn how to have a voice, to speak up for yourself. You have to learn how to have boundaries, to say you cannot talk to me that way. There are things that you take responsibility for in order to create the kind of relationship that you want, where you feel good and safe and loved, and your wife feels good and safe and loved, and your husband feels good and safe and loved. So, yeah.
That is such great information and advice, Patti Henry. I also think, in my opinion, and this was in my case, if you are emotionally abused and you have a low self-esteem picture of yourself, then I think you kind of tend to accept someone who's emotionally unavailable, or how they would talk to you, because you're just so happy that someone is talking to you or paying some attention to you. And that also can be a problem. So as parents, and, no parent is perfect. I was certainly not a perfect parent. Please watch how you talk to your boys and girls, really, especially girls. My father made fun of my sister and I, how we were built, what we looked like, and it's just not good.
Right. Well, it's just abuse and not loving. And so really getting to the point where you can love your children how they are. And I remember when my oldest turned 18, I said, you know what, honey? You're going to be floating from here on your own. I am always available if you want comfort, some kind of just advice, but I'm not going to give it to you unsolicited. And he said, great. So we developed a good relationship that when he needs help, he comes and says, Mom, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? I think I'm going to get married to this girl. What do you think about her? He was willing to do that because I was willing to pull back and not have to try to control him, to do it this way, do it. No. I'm just going to be amazed at each of my kids' journeys. It's just, and ours and mine too. My journey as well to my husband's, that we just each have this unique journey in the world and talent in the world, and to let that blossom.
Yes. And it's never too late, folks. I'm going to tell you that. It's never too late. I came into my own at the age of 60. I'm 64. Wish I knew back then, but 40-some years ago to know now. But, it's another chapter of my life. So if I should date again, I'm prepared. I'm prepared this time. I was not prepared.
Right.
Much more prepared. Much more wisdom. I want to thank you so much, Patti Henry, for coming on and my show and writing this book. And I really want to encourage young men and women to buy this book, and even older. It's for really, I think, from what would you say, middle school, teenage, and up?
Yes.
Would you, to get this book? And where can they purchase this book, Patty?
Well, Amazon is the easiest, and Barnes & Noble. It's not on the shelf anymore because it's written in 2002, I think, was published. And so you have to order it from Barnes & Noble and other bookstores, but they should be able to get it. And definitely Amazon has it. So, and...
That's great. Now, do you just do your therapy in private practice, or do you do virtual to anyone?
I do virtual with people around the world because they read my book and they want to work with me. And so it's like, okay, but they have good therapists in New York, and they're like, nope, we want to work with you. So I also do intensives where a couple will come in and work with me for 3 or 4 days, all day, and then we just keep in touch once a week after that for a while, just keeping them on the straight and narrow, as far as remembering what tools they've been given and to use them in the relationship. I really think the goal in the world is everybody learns how to love, and that if you do your part, that counts.
Yeah, so how do people get in touch with you if they want to do counseling with you, therapy with you?
They can just call me. Can I just give you my number?
Sure, if you're comfortable with that, yes.
Sure, it's 713-977-9397. And that's my office number. And, just call my office, and I will call you back if I'm not in the office. So, so 713-977-9397. And like I said, I work with people all over the world. I have a sliding scale as far as financial. I told a man that called me from Bulgaria, he had read my book, and he said that he and his wife needed couples therapy and how much would I charge. And I told him my fee is normally $200 per session. And he gasped, and he said, that's my whole month's salary.
Wow.
I said, okay, yeah. Well, let's do what you can afford. And we did just $5, and that's what they could do. And they came every week and never missed and worked hard and healed their relationship. So.
Oh, that just fills my heart. That's just very kind and gracious of you, Patti Henry, to help a couple that wants to work in their relationship yet couldn't afford your normal fee.
Right.
You don't meet too many people who would do that. And let me tell you, you do not. That's really rare, I think, to find in this world. And you know what? I wish I knew about you. Well, you probably weren't practicing back 40-something years ago. I just
no, not 40-something, but
I mean,
30.
I wish that I knew resources like you when I needed it. And this is why, Patti Henry, I do my podcast. This is my way of paying it forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, be careful, Betsy, because you are doing good work. And really claim that. You are doing good work. You are getting word out to people how to heal, how to be whole, and how to be awake, and that is invaluable. So you are lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This is, I really do. I wish, they taught about relationships,
yes.
When I was growing up, and to be, ready for a relationship. And my whole generation could have used that, really. But you know what, folks, it's never too late. It's never too late. You can't say, I don't want people out there to think, well, I'm 70 or 60, I'm too old. No, you're not too old. You're never too old to learn and to change and to improve. Life is a learning process. We're constantly learning.
I had a client that came in and he said, well, I am 80 years old, and you might think that's too late to do therapy. I said, well, usually people come a little earlier. And he said, but I had 2 uncles, and they lived to be over 100, 105, 107, and I'm going to live 20 more years, and so I'm going to get it right. I said, okay. And he worked hard.
That's so cute.
Yeah, he really got it. He really understood where his baggage came from and deciding to not let it have power in his life anymore.
Oh, that's beautiful. See, that's amazing. And you know what? That's true, Patty. I mean, as people are aging well, and they're aging in advanced, years, why not
living longer.
learn? Right, living longer.
Right.
Why not learn how to let go of that baggage and work on yourself? And it's never, ever too late to flip your beliefs around and to become empowered. Never too late. Oh, thank you so much, Patti Henry, for coming on, chatting with Betsy. Welcome. Really appreciate it. And thank you for writing your book.
With me.
You're welcome. Folks, take care, Patty. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The name of the book is The Emotionally Unavailable Man by Patti Henry, available on Amazon.com. If you want to have therapy or counseling, the office number is 713-977-9397. And if you missed any of this podcast, you can catch it again wherever you hear your favorite podcast. Chatting with Betsy is on CastBox, Speakers, Spotify, just to name a few. And I want to thank you all for listening, sharing, downloading. I want to thank Jeannie White, who writes the blog, produces the show. Please read the blog for information. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio Network, who makes this all possible. And, folks, it's never too late to change. You have the power. You have the power to change yourself. Don't let anyone tell you you can't, because you can. I changed in my 60s, and I'm not done yet. I've only just begun. So you can do it too. Thank you for joining me today on Chatting with Betsy. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy and Passion World Talk Radio Network. Till we chat again, please be kind. Bye-bye now.
Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager, at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon ALEXA, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.